So imagine this scenario. You've got a Dockerized application in a Git repo, and you want to build a Docker image. So you can just do Docker Compose build. This project is using that. It's available on GitHub, and this will build our image. And then let's say now you want to push this up to a registry. Maybe you want to deploy it to production or staging or something like that. That's not the goal of this video, so we're going to skip those steps there. But you can just push this or do whatever you need to do basically. But if you did that, then any changes that you have in this repo, even if they're not committed, maybe they're untracked files as well, that's going to be included in the output of your image there. So if we do a git status here, notice I made a couple little changes ahead of time. I added a new untracked file, whatever, it's an empty file. I also modified the README file. So if we do a git diff, we can see, I just added some dots there. But, let's say that you're actually building your image and pushing it up, but you don't want these uncommitted changes to be a part of the image that you're building. So we have a couple of different options that we can do here, right? You might be thinking like, well, you can just like stash your changes like this, then do your Docker Compose build, and then you can just like pop your changes afterwards. And then it's like, hey, you're good to go, right? But if you do a git status here, notice that the untracked file is still here. This would still be built into your Docker image. So let me go ahead and just pop this. And there's flags that you can pass into stash to make this work. You can do a git stash, and I believe it's include untracked. And then we do a status here. Hey, look at that. The untracked file is part of your stash now, and you can build your image, and then you can pop it afterwards, and you're good to go. There's even other use cases here too. For example, maybe you have some git ignored files that you don't want to be a part of that. So you can even do git stash all here, and that is going to stash your ignored files. You can take a look here. Look, there should be a .env file here, but it's not there because the .env file is ignored. So we're adding that to the stash. Maybe that's a use case that you want. And then we can also just git stash, and then we can pop that back. And then here's our files. And then again, we do a LSLA here. You can see there's the env file back where it needs to be. But I don't know, using git stash makes me a little bit nervous from time to time because it's very easy to forget that you have something stashed and then overwrite it. And then suddenly you lose all of your uncommitted changes, which you might not have backed up because they're not pushed anywhere. So I've lost work like that a little bit. Not a whole lot of stuff, but it's like, I don't know, whenever I use git stash, I'm using it for a very direct purpose, but instead we can actually use git worktrees, which is a really nice feature built into Git. So check it out. You won't have to install any extra tools or anything. We can just do git worktree add because we're going to add a new one. Then we are going to add the detach flag here because this is ultimately going to be put into, some directory of our choosing. I'm just going to throw it in a temp directory, hello world. It doesn't really matter what the name of it is, but we don't want an actual git branch to be a part of this. We just want essentially the file system of what's currently checked out here, the latest commit that you have. So yeah, let's do that. That's going to happen pretty quickly here. And if we take a look here at our git status, then things aren't changed because yeah, we're not stashing anything. We're not popping anything back out. The uncommitted changes are still here. And yeah, okay, cool. So we've got this work tree, and this is optional, by the way, but we can also take a look here at the Git directory. Under work trees, there is going to be this hello world one that we created here. So there it is. Basically, we don't need to worry about the gory details, but Git is internally managing this work tree. We're going to be deleting this later through a different command. But if we also take a look here at the hello world directory, this is going to be the directory of stuff. And notice the .env file is not there as well. That's something we're going to talk about in a second here. But yeah, this is not a Git repo here in this hello world directory. Let me actually just cd into it just so we can see. Yeah, you can see there's no branch here. This is not a Git directory. Cool, okay. But yeah, let's say you wanted to build your image now. Well, you need to get that env file copied over. So we're back in the repo here. So yeah, I'll just copy this over. I like using -n for no collabor mode just to make sure we're not going to be overwriting any files here. We're going to be copying this .env file if it happens to exist. In this case, it doesn't, so it wouldn't matter. But still, I like doing it for cases like this here. Yeah, we just want to copy that env file to the hello world directory. And then we have that there. And then if you wanted to, you can just, cd into this directory and build it. There's actually a nice little thing you can do with Docker Compose 2. For example, you can pass in a custom file path here of your Docker Compose file. So let's do that. Docker Compose here. What am I doing here? Yeah, of course, compose.yaml, not Docker Compose, because I changed the file name there some time ago. But then also we need to set the project directory to be something else, which is going to be hello world, because that's the directory of where things are. And now if we did this, this is actually going to run the compose command here. Notice that we're in this Flask repo, but we're actually pointing it to the hello world one. So this image that's going to be built, if I, what did I do? Oh yeah, of course, we need to build this one here. There we go. This is actually going to build the image from that directory. Again, you can run this command from the actual directory and not put in those custom paths to Docker Compose. That's fine. I just didn't want to cd into that directory and then cd back. But yeah, now we've got our Docker image built. It doesn't have any of those custom changes in there because, again, if we take a look here, actually, I should have maybe showed this one. Let's use less here on hello world. And then the README file here, those ... change is not there. But if we do less on the README file here in the repo, then we do see the ... there. So yeah, we've got our Docker image built successfully with the things that we wanted. And now the temp directory is basically done. We can throw it away. But instead of just doing something like an rm-rf there, we can actually just use git worktree. And then we can remove. I like using the force flag just to make sure, like, hey, by the way, it's really going to remove this no matter what. I see the typo here, yes. Also, my prompt is helping me there. Notice the color change there, which is pretty nice. And then we can do temp hello world here. And then that's going to remove the work tree. And then also, if you take a look here at that git directory for worktrees, it's not there anymore. So it got deleted. So that's the benefit of using something like remove here instead of just, removing the directory manually with rm-rf. So that's a super quick primer on using worktrees. They're pretty powerful. I really like them. You can use them for more than just this scenario here because it's like, yeah, you can just test something out. You can even have a branch if you want. When you create it, you don't need to use detach there. All sorts of different use cases. But for me, this idea of like, hey, by the way, I've got this project. I want to build an image. I don't want to include my uncommitted changes. Boom, you're good to go. If you do want to include your uncommitted changes, then hey, you don't need to do anything because you can just compose build it right here and all of them are going to be there. So with that said, yeah, if you have any questions, let us know in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer all of them. And if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help a lot. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.